if an alien armada arrived tomorrow, the Pentagon basically knows exactly what to do. I mean, they scramble the jets, they track the trajectories, they, calculate blast radiuses. We've been totally culturally primed for this huge kinetic physical clash.
Yeah, exactly. The whole Independence Day scenario.
Right. But, well, what happens when first contact isn't some massive invasion fleet, but like an interstellar code enforcement officer just showing up with a clipboard and a really strict December 31st deadline?
It completely paralyzes our entire geopolitical framework. I mean, you take the ultimate existential threat, the actual revelation that we are not alone in the universe, and you just wrap it in completely insurmountable bureaucratic red tape.
It's wild. Today is Sunday, June 7, 2026, and the source material we are unpacking today is, honestly, genuinely unsettling.
To say the least.
Yeah. We're looking at the staggering report by Ben Murphy. He's the senior national security correspondent for Science, Quill, and Ink, and he has outlined the impending declassification of a highly restricted Pentagon tape.
And we should clarify, this isn't another one of those greeny black and white infrared videos, just a blurry dot moving against the wind. Far from it. This is a comprehensive, multi-hour documentation of a literal face-to-face diplomatic interrogation between United States officials and two extraterrestrial entities.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to really comprehend the non-negotiable demands these beings have placed on humanity and, the absolute panic gripping the globe right now ahead of this deadline, we kind of have to look at how they arrived.
Right.
I am still trying to wrap my head around the sheer administrative audacity of this encounter. I mean, they didn't blow up a landmark.
No.
Back in March, a craft with this near-zero radar signature just quietly touched down in a remote valley in Montana, and they just voluntarily surrendered to the local military base.
Yeah, they essentially walked up to the front desk and asked to speak to the manager of Earth. And the U.S. military responded by immediately transporting them to a subterranean tactical ops center near Great Falls, Montana. Just imagine that scene for a second.
Oh, man.
You have the highest-ranking defense and intelligence officials in the country, people whose entire careers are built on assessing global military dominance, and they are just sitting around this standard-issue stainless steel conference table.
And sitting right across from them are two beings. The report describes the lead entity, which they designated as Subject Alpha, as being about 4 feet tall, bipedal, with this semi-translucent skin.
Right, and the eyes.
Oh, the eyes. They have these hyper-articulated eye cavities that just locked right onto the human interviewers. Mm-hmm. And of course, the human generals immediately try to steer the conversation toward the big questions, right? Like, how does your propulsion work? What is nature of dark matter? That kind of thing.
Because the human officials are looking for scientific enlightenment, or, at the very least, they want to gauge the military capability of the craft.
Exactly.
But Subject Alpha shuts down the scientific inquiry immediately. They aren't here as explorers. They aren't philosophers. They introduce themselves as representatives of a localized governance collective.
The sovereign enclave of Ross 128b.
Yes, an exoplanet roughly 11 light years from Earth.
And here is the craziest detail to me. They brought their own universal translator device, which apparently took their acoustic clicks and synthesized them into this completely uninflected transatlantic English dialect. The report literally compares the voice to the actor Cary Grant. So you have this translucent 4-foot-tall being basically threatening the sovereign control of Earth, but sounding exactly like a 1940s Hollywood leading man.
It's so surreal.
It really is. I was trying to find a good parallel for this, for you listening, and the closest thing I can think of is a cosmic homeowners association. It's like your HOA showing up with a clipboard to issue a final code violation, except, the penalty for noncompliance is planetary foreclosure.
The HOA analogy is actually remarkably apt here, because by approaching us this way, they completely bypass our entire defense infrastructure. Think about it. If they hover massive dreadnoughts over New York, we shoot. Yeah. We have protocols for kinetic war.
Right. We know how to do that.
But by sitting at a table and issuing this itemized list of administrative mandates with a set calendar deadline, they attack our bureaucratic and legal systems directly. They weaponize our own institutional friction against us.
Okay, so let's get into the actual citations on that clipboard, because Subject Alpha laid out 3 non-negotiable societal adjustments that we literally have to complete by the end of the year.
And they start with something completely unexpected.
Mandate 1, they are demanding the absolute cessation of the 6-7 linguistic craze across all global communications.
Yes. They want a complete and total eradication of a teenage internet trend.
For you listening, if you've been anywhere near a middle school or a shopping mall or just the internet in the last 2 years, the 6-7 craze.
It's everywhere.
It's a phrase paired with that very specific, alternating palm hand gesture that millions of adolescents just endlessly repeat. It is ubiquitous. But the enclave actually refers to this as subharmonic cognitive pollution.
And the rationale for banning it is deeply specific. The enclave claims that the rhythmic repetition of the 6-7 phrase and gesture done by millions of humans simultaneously is creating a constructive interference pattern.
Right.
And this pattern is building up within the upper ionosphere of Ross 128b. Basically, they claim it is actively jamming the navigational telemetry of their orbital surveillance platform.
Okay, wait, hold on. I really have to push back here because the physics of this feel completely absurd to me. Like, how does a human hand gesture and some spoken slang phrase physically translate into ionospheric interference 11 light years away? Are you telling me acoustic sound waves are traveling through the vacuum of space? Or is this like some kind of collective consciousness magic?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it isn't magic and it isn't sound traveling through a vacuum. We need to look at the concept of resonance and constructive interference.
Okay.
Think of the Earth's atmosphere and the ionosphere specifically, like the body of an acoustic guitar. If you have one person blowing across the top of a glass bottle, it makes a tiny vibration, right? Very localized.
Sure.
But if you have 80 million teenagers all doing a highly specific rhythmic physical action and vocalizing a specific frequency at roughly the same intervals every single day, you are generating a massive synchronized acoustic and electromagnetic resonance on the surface of the planet. Localized frequency anomalies bounce up into our ionosphere.
So the teenagers are basically acting like millions of tiny tuning forks all vibrating at the exact same pitch.
Precisely. And while the wave itself doesn't literally travel through space, the enclave relies on incredibly delicate, long-range, hyperspectral telemetry to monitor their regional neighborhood.
Right, their sensors are looking at us.
Exactly. And our planet is essentially flashing a blinding, chaotic strobe light directly onto their radar screens. So to the enclave, our middle schoolers aren't just participating in an innocent subculture, they are executing a decentralized, hostile jamming operation.
That is deeply unsettling. They basically view TikTok trends as active cyber warfare.
That's exactly how they see it.
Which is actually a perfect segue into how they view the rest of our digital footprint. Because they aren't just policing the physical frequencies we emit into space, they are aggressively policing the cultural signals we host on our servers.
Which brings us to the second demand.
Yes, Mandate 2. Which Congress has apparently dubbed the Ellen Ripley Mandate.
Named after the iconic protagonist of the Alien franchise, of course. Mandate 2 is a demand for the total retroactive removal of all motion pictures, television series, and documentaries depicting extraterrestrial life from every single global streaming platform.
It's an interstellar copyright strike.
Basically, yes.
Subject Alpha argued that Hollywood's entire sci-fi catalog is a massive intellectual property violation. And they said it constitutes malicious, anthropocentric defamation. They are highly offended that we portray non-humans as either ravenous organic monsters or sentimental, glowing-fingered castaways. The report notes they specifically demanded that Netflix stop turning every minor crime into a 3-episode docuseries, which, frankly, is hilarious. I mean, I understand the grievance. I really do. But there is a major logistical hole in this mandate that is really bothering me.
The timeline.
Yes. Ross 128b is 11 light years away. That means the light and radio signals reaching their home planet right now actually left Earth back in 2015.
Exactly.
So how do they know what the 2026 Netflix UI looks like?
That is the critical question, and it implies something pretty terrifying about their surveillance architecture. They aren't just watching us through a telescope from 11 light years away. The enclave clearly has forward-operating automated probes already embedded inside our solar system.
Wait, like right now?
Right now, perhaps even tap directly into our submarine fiber optic cables or our local satellite networks.
So they have a local router essentially scraping our data and transmitting it back to the craft in Montana.
Yes. They are deep inside our streaming algorithms in real time.
Just imagine opening your streaming app tonight, and half your watch list is legally mandated to be erased by a foreign cosmic power. It's totally absurd.
It is.
But that absurdity completely evaporates when we look at Mandate 3, Because while the first two demands deal with policing our culture and our data, the third mandate pivots to policing our physical borders. It is a tangible, absolute geopolitical nightmare.
Mandate 3 demands the immediate identification, apprehension, and surrender of a clandestine faction from a rival extraterrestrial empire. And the Enclave revealed this rival faction has been hiding on Earth, disguised as humans, since 1982.
44 years. We've had a competing interstellar species walking around in human suits, and the Enclave knows exactly where they're localized.
Down to the building.
Yeah. Subject Alpha stated they are heavily embedded within the Internal Revenue Service, and surprisingly, an Elks Lodge in Dover, New Hampshire.
Which is, the specificity of those locations tells us a lot about the rival faction's strategy. If you are an alien species utilizing biological mimicry to hide on a foreign planet, you don't embed yourself in Hollywood or the military where you constantly draw attention.
Right, you'd be found out instantly.
Exactly. You hide in the most mundane, rule-bound, low-emotion bureaucracies you can possibly find.
There is a quote in Murphy's piece from a high-ranking IRS official speaking anonymously. The official said, quote, "It's going to be a difficult screening process because some of our regional audit supervisors have never once engaged in behavior that would suggest they are capable of emotion or biological necessity, extraterrestrial or otherwise."
The underlying reality is a severe constitutional crisis.
How so?
Well, the Department of Defense and the National Security Agency are now being forced to pivot from looking outward at foreign nations to looking inward at domestic tax-paying entities.
Oh, right. Because Sarah Caldwell, a spokesperson for the NSA, stated they are rapidly deploying specialized diagnostic and biometric screening protocols at designated field offices.
Right.
They're basically attempting to create a secure mechanism for these non-humans to voluntarily step forward. But let's pause and think about the implications for you, the listener. How do you verify the person in the cubicle next to you is human without causing a mass panic or completely violating their civil liberties?
You are hitting on the exact legal minefield. The National Security Agency possesses absolutely zero domestic law enforcement mandate to detain individuals based solely on non-terrestrial biological origins. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. So, does a being from a rival empire who has lived in Dover, New Hampshire since 1982, paid human taxes, and participated in the local Elks Lodge have constitutional rights?
It is an unprecedented tangle of civil rights, national security, and just sheer existential dread. And that is why, as this December 31st, 2026 deadline looms, Earth hasn't united, holding hands, singing songs.
Not at all.
We have fractured instantly.
The pressure on human leadership right now is immense, and the political responses really reflect this intense tension between immediate physical security and long-term domestic stability.
And looking at the source material, the political divide is fascinating. Obviously, we were just reporting the facts of their stances here, but the contrast is stark.
Right. Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer of New York expressed severe reservations about the economic fallout of Mandate 2. He warned that completely dismantling our digital streaming libraries and forcing massive tech sector compliance overnight could trigger an immediate recession.
Right.
He even added a surprisingly candid note saying, "I'm only on season 2 of Resident Alien."
I saw that. Meanwhile, lawmakers from the region where the craft actually landed are viewing this with far more urgency. Republican Senator Steve Daines of Montana is demanding immediate capitulation to the Enclave's demands.
Because of his location.
Exactly. His state is geographically vulnerable if the Enclave decides to escalate. He literally stated he is willing to issue tasers to our teachers to forcefully suppress the 6-7 trend in schools right now.
We are seeing local geographic vulnerability clash directly with national economic strategy, and that macro-level political fracture is mirrored perfectly at the micro level within the general public.
Absolutely. The electorate is tearing itself apart, trying to weigh abstract existential threats against tangible daily freedoms. The article profiles Arthur Pendleton, a taxi driver in Seattle, who views yielding to these mandates as the death of human self-determination.
Which is a valid perspective.
Right. He argued that we cannot allow a pair of translucent weirdos to dictate human vocabulary. He literally wants to set up industrial lasers to project the words 6-7 directly at their star system in defiance.
It is a profound defense of sovereignty. But flip that coin, and you have Beatrice Miller. She's a middle school administrator and mother of 3 from Ohio. She represents a massive pragmatic coalition of parents.
Her quote stopped me in my tracks because it is so incredibly grounded. She basically asked, if all it takes to prevent our cities from being vaporized from orbit is deleting some alien movies off our iPads and banning a mind-numbing internet phrase that is already driving teachers insane.
Why is this even a debate?
Exactly. For her, banning 6-7 is an absolute blessing for the school system, regardless of whether a UFO is parked in Montana.
And while the public argues the philosophy of free speech versus survival, the global infrastructure is just buckling under the uncertainty. Tech sector stocks are fluctuating violently as companies try to calculate the literal cost of purging vast swaths of their intellectual property.
The UN Security Council is in marathon sessions right now, just desperately trying to draft emergency resolutions. They're trying to figure out how to harmonize global communication laws to legally enforce a linguistic ban on a multinational level before the deadline.
It really forces a mirror up to our entire civilization. We're being asked to weigh the value of our digital convenience and our fundamental constitutional rights against the literal survival of the planet.
And as of right now, the White House has remained totally silent on whether they will invoke emergency executive powers to bypass Congress to meet the enclave's deadline. The tape we've been discussing goes fully public this week. The clock is officially ticking. We have just under 7 months to overhaul the vocabulary of our youth, purge our global media archives, and root out a hidden species from the IRS.
The logistical mountain we have to climb is staggering, and honestly, the consequences of failing to climb it are unthinkable.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to mull over as this story inevitably dominates the news cycle in the coming days. We've always assumed the great filter of the universe. The reason we haven't seen sprawling galactic empires was war. We assumed civilizations blow themselves up or get conquered by superior weapons. But what if the ultimate evolutionary filter of the cosmos isn't kinetic warfare? What if advanced civilizations survive not by outgunning each other, but by outregulating each other? I mean, if a cosmic HOA can force humanity to willingly dismantle its own culture, rewrite its constitution, and turn on its neighbors just by handing us a clipboard with a deadline,
then we've already lost.
Exactly. The great filter isn't a laser beam, it's bureaucracy. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the information around you, and we will see you next time.